So, another one that passed away, which, and I hate to be a little bit, I don't know if it's morbid or what, but for some reason, I had thought that he had already passed away. And that would be the Ugandan giant, Kamala, Uncle Bill. He had passed away earlier this week as well.
I think it's because, like, he had been so sick, and you didn't, like, the last thing I remember hearing about him was the thing about him losing a leg, and then I don't remember hearing anything else. So,
right. He had lost, I think he had lost both legs, last I'd heard.
Did he lose both legs?
Mm-hmm.
God.
Well, not at the same time. He lost one, and then, like, I don't know if it was a year or two later, he had to get the other one. But I think he's one of the big, like, unsung hero, like, wrestling legends, I think. I mean, that gimmick, that's one of the best gimmicks of all time, I would think, because Kamala, like, okay, you take all that stuff off of him, and he's just like a fat black guy. And he can't really wrestle. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but that's the truth. Like, he was not a very good wrestler, but you give him that gimmick, he's a big old son of a bitch. Put that makeup on him, man, and it works, and he was a strong son of a bitch too.
Yeah.
Which I was actually talking to Jared the other day, our other buddy that likes wrestling. Look this up on YouTube. Kamala body slams Andre the Giant. This was before.
Yeah, they had, like, that was one of the feuds that I kind of remember from going back and watching. Like, and I think it was '84. They had some sort of a kind of like program going at that time.
Yeah, it was. I think it was in Mid-South, like Bill Watts, early mid '80s, something like that. And he body slammed Andre like it wasn't nothing. I mean, that was what's so crazy. Dude, it was a legit body slam too.
I never really thought about this, but like, go back and watch some of those matches with him. He was like, he had to be between 6'5" and 6'9".
Well, they built him at 6'8". I don't know if he was that tall or not, but he was a big guy. He was next to Andre. He was pretty close,
Yeah.
And the look of Kamala too, like with the face paint, and he's got the stars and the moon painted on his belly and stuff. He just, to me, like, I know it was like a colorful kind of a character or whatever, but that was, I don't know, that gimmick was just so great. I think Jerry Lawler was the one that came up with that gimmick in Tennessee back in the day, because I think he was using like a gimmick like Sugar Bear Harris, where he was just basically, just wearing regular tights. But the funny thing about Kamala too is he never really spoke or anything. He just kind of moaned. He was like,
that was the best part,
and but if you go and watch, like, he did a lot of shoot interviews and stuff like that, you can see how Kamala really spoke, and he was just a redneck guy from Tennessee, or no, was he from? I don't know. I think he was from Mississippi, actually.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But man, that just sucked, because Kamala really was, like, even when I was a kid, he was one of the first like heel wrestlers that I kind of enjoyed. But yeah, I mean, that,
because it was kind of like in the same way, like it's kind of a less silly, more menacing version of like Papa Shango. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it had the same kind of vibe to it. And he actually feuded with, I remember the time, it had to be the mid 80s when he was feuding with Hogan. Like, that was the biggest part of my childhood, really, was around that time, that he had like at least a year-long feud with him.
Oh yeah. I mean, they had, and the thing is like, he'd always said too in interviews that Vince didn't ever really give him a proper payoff for a lot of those big matches, like the ones that he had with Hogan, and he had the big match, the big feud with Undertaker back in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that is or not. And I'll tell you something else that pissed me off. Like, it's another case of one of those guys that he should have already been in the Hall of Fame. He should have been able to go up there and take the acceptance speech, give the acceptance speech and all that. But it didn't happen, So Which, I
I mean,
it's,
if you look at the fuckers they put in the Hall of Fame, I mean, Coco Beware got in there before him.
yeah. As far as
Like,
there's still guys like Bam Bam Bigelow's never put in the Hall of Fame either. You know, Vader, he was another one that should have been put in before he passed away.
he definitely should have.
Yeah. So, as far as big man wrestlers, Vader, Bam Bam Bigelow, Kamala, all those guys. So, another funny segment you can look up with, you remember when they were, the only time they had ever tried to turn Kamala babyface is when they put him with Slick. Do you remember
I
this?
I do remember that. Yeah.
So there's a segment you can go on. I think WWE put it up. It must have been on like one of those shows like Superstars or Wrestling Challenge or whatever. It's when it's just so, like you would think somebody made this up. This was so great. There's a segment with Lord Alfred Hayes, Slick, and Kamala at a bowling alley. And you know, it's like the thing is they're trying to make Kamala, you know, you're a man, Kamala. We're going to teach you how to do, you know, manly things or whatever. So you can, and Slick was showing him how to bowl. And some of the looks and the moans and shit that Kamala did, and that was just the awesomest shit ever. And Kamala had his own bowling ball that had the moon and the stars and stuff painted on it like it was on his belly.
I've never seen that. That's bound to be amazing.
It's really, yeah, it was just so great.
I remember, I don't remember if it was Survivor Series or SummerSlam when he was going against The Undertaker. Didn't he have like a coffin match that had the moon and the stars and shit on the coffin?
Yeah, they had like a big pine box made for him and had, yeah. And that's the thing, like that was some memorable shit, man. Like, and the feud with the thing with him and Hogan, they could have had Kamala at a WrestleMania. He could have been one of Hogan's opponents, but I think it was in between WrestleManias. So, yeah, I mean, it's sad. Kamala, James Harris, which is funny. Kamala Harris is going to be running vice president, but she wasn't the original Kamala Harris.
No.
So.
Wouldn't that be killer if that was her gimmick? She'd get up there and start smacking her belly and going, oh.
Yeah, it's got that. She's got the Kamala theme music when she comes out. Oh, yeah.
Kim Chi comes out with her.
Yeah. Her handler's Kim Chi. So, yeah. Poor old Kamala. But, yeah, he's definitely has to be a future Hall of Famer. I just hate the fact that all these guys go in the Hall of Fame when they can't enjoy it, you know?
I know. And then dumbasses get in there like, yeah. But I was thinking, though, when you said that, though, it's amazing how many characters like that actually were pretty solid characters came out of WWF in the 80s like that. I mean, they made tons of memorable wrestlers like that. I'm not saying that they weren't already, like a lot of them weren't already doing the same gimmicks, like, but they actually created a lot of things like, and the way they designed it, I think, was the most impressive part.